Fast Forward Productions. The women are speaking.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the One Broke Actors podcast, an honest account of actor life plus a few lessons I learned in the process. I am your host, Sam Valentine, and this is another one of our working actor life episodes where I bring in my internet best friend turned real life best friend, actress in Atlanta, Gabrielle Bidlas, and we kind of talk about what's going on in our working actor lives. What's new, what's poppin', just generally what's on the zeitgeist of things like social media that we talk about and spend a lot of time on. Hi, Gab.
Hey, I think that people have probably watched us fall in love through all of these. Each time they hear us become more and more natural, know more about each other, feel more grounded. So funny to hear it be like, my internet best friend now turned real best friend. Because when it first started out, it was my co-owner of the membership. And now we've just migrated into more.
And also, anyone who's listening, I'm really challenging Gabrielle today because we are utilizing a different recording platform. We're attempting something new. So I threw new tech at her about 5 minutes ago and said, hey, just log on here instead, because I just really like to challenge the people I love. So we're going to see how this goes. I think it's going to be great. I think we're going to kill it. What's going on with you? It's June 18th.
June 18th.
And IATSE's having a chat. Everyone's still in the weird holding period. Everyone's saying that in July, if IATSE chills, that things are going to be busy again, but I'll believe it when I see it. And it's been a couple weird weeks. How are you doing?
Yes. You know what? It feels like that time in between Christmas and New Year before whatever pilot season used to look like, where you'd get a couple of things that would trickle in and you'd be like, oh, that's so cute that you guys think you're going to cast something that doesn't even start filming until March. I'll still audition though. No big deal. You want to what? I don't know, book this talent? For sure. Am I available? Absolutely. Let's see. And then you don't hear anything back. And then eventually you see a Deadline article come out in February of the following year that says that they're starting to film. And you're like, oh, so that's where that project went. That's how I feel right now. There's been a couple things that have trickled through and I've looked into it and it's been filming in 2 weeks. I'm like, are you though? Because no one knows what's going to happen with the IATSE potential strike or not. And I know you aren't going to waste money. It's just been kind of strange. I think you and I are doing such a good job of embracing the strange and trusting that the industry is going to change anyways. It's not going to look the same as what we thought it was going to look. So we're along for the ride.
I've had a really good couple of weeks. It hit me last week that, and I did a whole bonus podcast, if you guys want to check that out, about getting a new manager. And last week I had COVID, which sucked. Came back from a trip, had COVID, I'm getting ready to leave for another trip. I feel all over the place. But I also have this internal feeling of chill that's weird. And I think this is what they call trusting your team. It's new.
I think it's trusting your team and trusting that you put systems in place for exactly this. It's just lasting way longer than we thought it was going to be when we first put these systems in place. When you made OBA, it was something you were doing as a background hobby because you just needed to get some information and thoughts out. And now OBA has been a huge part of your brand and who you are. And she's grown with you, but it's still hard to trust that she's good. You don't need to continue to water her every hour.
It's a very different feeling. And there's always been a thing to work on. There's always something to do. And having signed with a manager who I really trust and is working really well with my current agents, is this what it feels like to be like, all right, well, the next audition will come when it's supposed to come. 13 years in, I'm kind of okay with this right now. It's weird. You will understand this because you have had a very good agent and for a while a very good manager too, and you've trusted them intrinsically. There's a transition of being able to sit back and let things happen and trust that your work is done. And you and I just finished a 8-week class with Erica Bream. That was her advanced actors class. Do you feel this?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, do you think that the strike from last year to the slow burn of you getting a team of reps, well, what part of the pie chart do you feel like that is? Because I think that we can't just put it on, you now have reps that you can depend on, right? This has been multiple seasons of your life to get here. And I wonder if you would still feel this chill had there not been an entire year of nothing for most people and it already being slow. Do you feel like that vetted you to accept this chill a little bit easier?
Probably because I had a year without anything and I was fine. I didn't die. In fact, 2022 was a harder year for me than 2023. I think because I had a lot of successes in 2021 and not as much into 2022. And I thought that the ball was rolling. And I thought, we know better. We know so much better. And yet we convince ourselves every time, like, this is what this is going to look like now. Like, now I'm in the place where I'm going to book it at least once every other month or something like that, which is so cute. And it's just not, and it didn't happen. And I thought I broke something and I did something wrong. So I spent the whole year beating myself up watching other people audition and book and all these things. But they probably spent the previous year watching me audition and book and did the same thing. So in 2023, when I was like, well, no, nobody's doing anything. So like, let's just see how this goes. There was some freedom found in that. It's a weird thing.
I think that it's important for you to announce to the world that there's another major factor that happened between that year of 2022 to 2023. And that is we started working together. And I'm pissed the fuck off that I wasn't including that. No, just kidding.
Oh my God, let's film it. Let's film the fight. Let's finally do it. People love internet drama. This is called rage baiting, folks. We're just going to put this section up on social media.
Yeah, start it with this. I fucking hate you and I don't want to work with you anymore. What I mean by that, minus the fact that we are glorious together, but is that you had a partner in crime in this that you didn't have before. For a long time, you were doing this career by yourself in LA and trying to make the right decisions. It comes down to community. You've been providing community for people for a long time. You haven't had anybody to be able to call and go back and forth on these ideas. And then, I mean, you picked somebody that's like me, that's like, I love acting. It's fucking fantastic, but it's not my everything. So I think it has helped you be able to be like, oh, okay, so it doesn't have to be my everything on everything. Whereas you've helped me on other things as well. And so I just think that you've done a really good job at rolling with the punches, that they're finally paying off with a team of people that you can rest and relax in. But it is hard still for you to rest and relax because it's been 13 plus years of you not being able to, with nobody to have your back. Now, not only do you have a support system in terms of like a friend to call when this is going on, but you have a team of people. And you didn't have that, either one.
Thank you.
You spend so much time on these podcasts talking about everybody else and their fantasticness that I feel like it's always my goal when we get on these to take a second and like honor the thousands of people that do listen to you. And I know you can be like, my number's not in the thousands of people that listen to you. I looked at your click links the other day. Don't even fuck with me. I know exactly where your
metrics. We did share analytics.
We share analytics, and we also have a same platform called Metricool that I can look at all of her stuff too. People come to this stuff for you, right? You ask good questions. But it's important that we go back to where you are and what is working for you, because that's where OBA started, when you couldn't get somebody on the podcast to talk and you had to fill a week because people were saying, no, I don't want to do it, or who is that, or whatever. It was built on you. So it's important to come back to where you are, how you got there, and what your struggles are still.
That is really special to hear, one, and always very amazing to me. And this was not something you foresaw, for you to have an actor who was your friend and your go-to person for like life shit and auditions and stuff. So for our actors who are kind of living that solo situation, what's happened for you in this end? Because this has been the shift for you. Because your agents and managers are still the same. You're still getting auditions. A lot of your life has changed, but this particular piece, I think, in your acting career is a huge differentiator.
Here's what I think has happened for me. I have evolved, which I wouldn't have evolved without having a community. And the solo life of I don't need anybody allows you to grow because it's you versus you. You're in the ring on your own, constantly trying to figure out how to level up. But then you start working with a community or finding somebody else to do your acting career with. And it's like, holy shit, there's another ring over there. And that person's like, yeah, why don't you come in here and check out what my ring looks like? And you get in there and you're like, oh my God, you put the ropes this way. You're using these kinds of punching bags. Like, I didn't even know that was an option. I was in my ring and I thought I was growing as much, but now I can like actually evolve and take some things that work from you and bring it into mine and vice versa. And then what you and I have done has been like, and then let's create our own ring together and see what ends up happening. So I wouldn't have foreseen evolution. I would have just seen growth. And I thought they were the same thing for the longest time. But I think as an actor, what becomes valuable on camera isn't growth, it's evolution. We want to see humans change and then tell us about what they've done to change.
It is so vulnerable to change in public. This is something that you and I talk about a lot on social media, and it is really hard for people to watch and to download. And I think it's something that we all don't want to show because we just want to show like an end product of anything. I want to show like the before and after. I don't want to show my day-to-day life where I'm not booking work. I want to show the sad day, and then I want to show the day I book the series regular. But to be able to show growth while it's actively happening is brave, but it's brutal because people, especially online, are tough. To say, I used to think this, but now I think this, is essential for humans, but almost impossibly unwanted by society. It's very jarring. And I mean, I have stuff from older podcasts, and I'm like, that's no longer relevant. That's not true anymore. And I can say that very casually, but some people have a struggle to do that live. And so for you to say, I didn't used to think that I would need an actor to expand and grow in this job as a person, whatever, for you to say, I was wrong about blah, 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 and actively do it live is a whole nother thing. And can we talk about that a little bit? Because the social media of it all is like, oh, it's a lot. It's heavy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say I was wrong. So I just let the record show. Those words didn't come out of my mouth. I'll have to sit with that in therapy for a bit. I didn't recognize that I was wrong in that situation, but fair call out, Sam Valentine. I feel like people probably listen to this sometimes. They're like, how is she in business with her? She's so black and white. I digress. She's in business with me because I'm a badass and we work really well together.
Exceptionally successful, unfortunately.
Exceptionally successful. Yeah. She couldn't get rid of me if she tried. What was the question?
I love how you took that and made it into a compliment. But what I was saying was it's hard to admit that you're wrong a lot.
We're trying to lead me in. There's something I completely just like did not play the role of improv of yes and I just cut it and was like, nope, not gonna do it.
No, I didn't say I was wrong. In fact, I'm amazing. And like that is the log line of Gabrielle Binloss. Everyone needs to know this is what you get, and you should be so lucky.
Admitting you are wrong on social media is hard. I still have to work on it, but I'm not afraid of showing growth on social media. I think it's a problem for people because people subscribe to you wherever you're at their journey of subscribing to you. And then you change, you morph, and they're like, wait a second, I thought I subscribed to you based off of blah, 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 but now you're selling me something totally different. I don't know if I like that. And that's like what we do in relationships, right? Like people who've been together for a long time, they shapeshift over and over and they continuously decide to choose that person. But for some reason on social media, people put us into a box and don't think that we're going to change outside of it because then you're just getting the same thing over and over again. Anyways, people just love to comment on our shit and tell us what we're doing wrong, right, what they would love to give us feedback on. It's so funny to me because it's like, I'm just showing you my life. It's not open for interpretation. So confused as to why you felt like you were invited. I don't know why.
See, and this is the difference between you and me on social media is you're like, I didn't ask for this feedback. And I am there thinking, oh, I must have been inaccurate in my explanation. I must have misspoke. Let me try to get my point across more, because being misunderstood is one of my biggest issues on social media. And you're like, oh, you read that wrong and you're wrong. And it's so much cleaner, but it's exhausting.
That's, we would say in the yoga world, like the way you show up on the mat is the way that you show up in your real life. And I would argue that that's exactly what plays into here. Like that's probably how we show up with self-tapes. We get feedback and your immediate reaction is, or maybe older Sam was, oh my God, I did everything wrong. I've got to redo it. I've got to reset it. Maybe back in the day, old Sam would have just like taken that note, dropped everything else that she did right, and like just given him that note. Versus for me, I'm always like, wait, I'm not wrong. You just don't see the greatness. And that's a you problem, not a me problem. So I would get feedback or notes and I would immediately be like, what's your problem with me? Like, are we fighting? I don't understand. And it's like, bitch, you're at a callback. That's what happens. And then my second read would be like, so I'm not sure why she turned into being angry, but she's not. I'm like, right, she, the character isn't, but I am. So now we're here. Social media has helped me with that to understand like how to be able to not feel that way all the time. But it's messy.
Sometimes you'll screenshot a comment and you'll send it to me and you'll just like wait for my response. And I'm like, does she think this is positive or negative? And you were like, oh, I thought they were just being nosy. And so the interpretation of a comment, for example, can be so huge. And to have different perspectives look at it and be like, how do I want to, and to reply but not react is like huge. And now we're kind of drifting into like the social media conversation of it all. But it's been years and years and years of being on the internet to learn these like subtle nuances and to not feel the need to react to everything. And I've drifted. Does this make sense?
This makes sense. You've drifted because we originally wanted to have this conversation about SAG influencers. And I think that there still lives another space where we speak about that in bigger terms, how to our journey through it. But what's important from this conversation in the segue that we've gone through is like we've used social media to help us expand in our acting career and get more and more closer to our sense of self. Because when you're on social media, you're putting out a version of you, and we're choosing to put out versions of us, and we're getting direct feedback from people on how that's resonating. And then we're also taking that and bringing it into our self-tapes. And because of that is why we now have influencer contracts, which 2 or 3 years ago, you could have told me, I would like, I'm not doing that. That's so lame. Influencers aren't even like, they are whatever. I'm not dancing on TikTok for money. I'm still not dancing on TikTok for money. But the influencer world does
Sometimes
exist.
you dance on TikTok. Don't give me that. Every once in
Okay.
a while, it's like a BTS video of you making some you're not doing
I
a
don't
dance.
know
You not
what the fuck is happening.
shots fired.
COVID got in your system, and that bitch is out here. She is fucking out.
Every once in a while, you're in a little bit of dance. I'm not wrong. It's not like you're doing a trending dance.
Do you want me to admit that I'm wrong? Fine, I was wrong. I guess I do dance at some point on TikTok. I don't remember when it happened. I need direct examples, but fine.
I'll
I
pull
may or
some
may
up.
not have been correct. She'll pull some up. Exhibit A will be our next podcast.
That recording of you just going, fine, I was wrong. I am going to cut, and it's going to be your ringtone. Do people still have ringtones? I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll make it happen.
Totally dating ourselves. Back to what I was trying to say. That's not the only way to make money. And being an influencer and TikTok actually pays you a substantial amount of money that you can now use towards your health and pension for SAG. And it's recognized, which is wild to me. And it just shows me that if you aren't figuring out how to work with where we are at tech wise, you're putting yourself at a disservice. And I think as actors, there's so much that's out of our control that we can be hesitant to want to figure out social media or AI or VR, but it's all going that direction. And I have received auditions for social media things that are through my agency, and the price point of what they want to pay is like 1/10 of what you make if you're just an influencer doing it. So that is wild. And no one is having this conversation, as far as I know, that are actors besides you and I. Did you know that this is a possibility and it could help you get into SAG if you wanted it to? Like, this is happening.
We'll attach the podcast I did with the officials from SAG in the show notes about the podcaster and the influencer contracts. It's real. And it's not, we think the word influencer has such connotations of like an itty bitty petite little white woman who's like got a green juice and is like walking along the palm trees. Like, also, if that's you, cool, more power to you. I probably followed you at some point. But it's so much more than that now. And it's just another place for us to put creativity should we choose to use it. And yes, it is also not automatic. Like I had someone say, oh, maybe I should just get a bunch of followers and try and get into SAG that way. And I was like, it's not like that. It's such a work in progress. You and I are just starting to we made our own businesses to create income from things we were doing. But now we have brand deals and we have someone representing us to get brand deals. And if you guys want this, comment on this Instagram post in my feed and ask us questions because we can do a whole podcast about this. But there are a lot of things happening in the back end that are helping us pay for our lives while things like IATSE sort out their contract. And while we switch agents and managers, or while the world settles and figures out its next thing, and we are still able to function and to live our lives and not dependent on necessarily one thing to go right, where 1,000 things had to go right to get to that one point. And that to me is power. That to me is creativity because we get to make up our own stuff. Like, it doesn't look the way I pictured my acting career going, but like, who gives a fuck?
Speak on the creativity of it because I think I've just now started. I approach everything with such a business mindset that I'm like, if
Mhm.
this isn't going to make money, I'm not going to do it. And I'm working on that. I'm working on my money mindset recently. These are the new things that we're doing. And I've been starting to play around with the creativity of it, which is where I feel like I was before I decided to make money off of social media. And
Mhm.
I'm using it to be able to help me understand where I feel like I fall comedically because I don't feel like I'm a funny person. And I know that that's not true based off of what other
Mhm.
people have shared with me, but I feel uncomfortable in it. So I'm trying to find
Mhm.
where my funny is, and I'm using social media to do it. I'm like gauging what people think is funny. I'm trying out new things and new characters, even though when I am in the middle of doing it, I'm calling bullshit and feeling like, what the fuck am I doing? I am finding this new side, like you're saying, where creativity gets to lie that I couldn't do in an audition. I couldn't like fuck around an audition and see how it's received. I personally wouldn't even be able to do that because I'm like, this is an opportunity. I want to make sure I put my best foot forward. I know this works for me comedically. That's what I'm going to do. I wouldn't even try anything new. But social media gives us the area to be able to play and to get a reaction. Some of it's stupid, but a reaction from people and see how
Mhm.
things land. Are you finding that it's creatively helping you at all with tapes or anything?
I feel more at home in my own body and in my own skill set. I don't think I have a direct correlation because on social media, when I play at something like this, sometimes I play this casting networks character that I love to fuck around with, is like to a 10. Whereas if I was putting that on tape, I would never do that sort of tape. I would bring that 10 to like a 2 and integrate it into my Sam more. But playing the extremes is also a fun way to find different parts of yourself. And that fluidity of being like, I'm going to set up my camera, I'm going to say these words, and then seeing the power of editing. Because sometimes, like you're saying, that feeling of this is not funny, this is not working, I don't know what's working. It's funny in the edit. It's funny where you cut it. It's funny with the last button. It's funny, like, because of the thing you put behind you all of a sudden in like text or something like that. Like, the edit can be such the funny and it takes some pressure off of us too, to always show, to always be able to deliver the everything, right? So in a tape, how could we facilitate that? So that is something I have learned in that capacity of like timing. And what is funny on the internet is often funny on a tape too, because it's, although I can't cut my tape to be like, da-da-da, I mean, I could, but it could be jarring. I would never do that unless it was an influencer role. Anyway, caveats. I would use that timing. So, like, can you cut me off? Or, like, do I start to turn around? Do I drop something? Do I pick something up? What is that? And, like, how is that funny? And that to me is huge and like that correlation. So, I think editing is also a huge thing. And I'm not talking, when people hear editing, they think like Final Cut Pro and colorization and this and that, and like 700 windows open on a computer. No, I'm talking about cutting, clip, clip, clip. And like you can do it on Instagram, you can do it in CapCut. Your 6-year-old who babysat for is probably good at this. Like that's the kind of editing I'm talking about. And that you can, I think, play around with and test a lot, especially in terms of funny stuff, I think is huge. I would take some onus off of yourself of you having to like power to be the funny. Cause to me, your funny is that you're such a good base. You're so funny when you're dry. You don't even realize sometimes when you're funny. I'll say something to you and you'll say like, I'm not sure what that means. And it's just so clean cut and there's no giggle at the end. And that's not what, like when I speak, there's always like a laugh afterward or like I'm making everyone super comfortable and you have no need to make other people comfortable when you speak. And that is so funny. And I think when you use that on social media, that's even more hilarious because then you can clip it out to where it's like, is this a long take? Is this a short one? Is this, and that like gets me excited. So that gets my creative juices going. And like I said, is this how I pictured? Did I think I was going to be talking to my phone camera at age 35? Or am I going to be 36 when this plays?
It doesn't matter. But
Yeah,
either way,
soon.
would not have thought in my 30s I'd be talking to the internet on a camera to make
Oh.
money.
But you know what I also didn't think? That I would have this hot of a husband and be living in a house. And I got all that shit. And I really like him a lot, by the way. And that is rare. And I like my whole life. And that's not part of what I pictured either. So what I pictured is nonsense. Once again, evolving live. Gonna be on the cover of every magazine, gonna be the next big starlet. It's not the way my dream is anymore. So I'm kind of doing it.
I want us to cut what you just said about playing around with social media to play with comedy, because that was like a little masterclass in there. I was taking notes in my head. I don't think I actually, so I just want to like go back and say some things for people that also too might feel like they're not funny. You're funny in the edit, which is something that I didn't think about when I'm doing an audition. I'm thinking like, okay, they're going to just watch this one. Are they going to think I'm funny? And they might not, because the edit and the adding, it's so collaborative on a comedic script. It really is ensemble based, that we need all of it to be able to make it funny. But I definitely have been approaching them, until I heard you say that, like a dramatic audition where it's like, okay, I hold the weight, I bring the drama, I bring the intensity, and that is what I do really well. But on comedy, I'm like, what do I don't, maybe I play the person that doesn't know where she fits in and is awkward. And then I'm like, bitch, when have you been awkward? You're just standoffish. Like, what is happening? You see this? It all fucks around in my head.
Cheryl Lee Ralph on Abbott Elementary,
Yes.
she's not awkward. She's the teacher who's been there forever and is like, no, yes, no. Clean cut answers, very clear opinions, but she's hysterical because of the situations she's put in and the way they edit her.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
mind blowing, because I didn't think of that. I'm even thinking like I need to record a video today, and I'm like, oof, can't wait to see how I can play with that. Which just brings us back to the point of like, I thought that being an influencer was going to look like one thing, and in turn, it's actually helped with my career. And I appreciate where the industry is at right now, because I wouldn't have had any time to fuck around and find out with any of this had we been auditioning the way we would have used to. And I wouldn't have seen any evolution in my career. I can't wait to see where Gabrielle stands in 5 years and looks back and be like, oh, could you believe that she's there? I'm so glad she spent those whatever time creating a business and working with somebody that helped call her out on her shit and when they think she's wrong, even though she's not. And honestly, just working her very, very best at trying to show up on social media and not die from the trolls. She made it.
Dude, we could do a whole podcast about the things we've learned from thickening our skin. And you, for some reason, have it way worse than I do, which is really frustrating to me. People really come for you, maybe because your opinions are hard and clear, but also they're not. Like, they are, but they're not. We just talked about growth and evolution. And you could say, this is now what I believe. This is how I'm looking at things now. I don't know why you get so much more shit than I do.
I think it's just a part of me and who I am. I'm a confrontational person. Somebody's going to be like, does she think that? Or is she trying to like tell me it's not pretty? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't say it if I didn't think it. I do think it's pretty. If I thought it was ugly, I would say it's ugly. But I said it's pretty. So I'm not sure why you're confused. And then I make it a whole thing, right? So I think that my connotation of the way I talk is like, this is how I feel about something. And if you feel differently, come for me and let's see what happens. And I think that that invites trolls a little bit more, where you do a good job of being like, this is how I feel. I mean, you recorded the ClickLink thing the other day about people paying for your one-on-one like calls that you were talking about. And you ensured to put like, hey, if this doesn't work for you, you can also do this, or join in with a couple of different people. And that makes it make sense. You're very good at being inclusive with the way that you speak on things. And so I think that it makes people feel like even if they listen to it the wrong way, maybe they're in the wrong, because they're like, well, she does a really good job of making sure everyone's included. I also just think that, I don't know, being a Black woman on the internet makes it easier for people to feel like something is, I don't know, worthy of feedback. I'm not really, I don't know about that.
Did everyone miss 2020? Where were you for the Black Lives Matter thing? I thought we were in agreement that we were raising up Black women voices. Like, did everyone sleep on that? Where were you guys?
I think if some people slept on it. You know who the
People
fuck you
were-
are, bitch.
We know you, and we've already blocked you. Don't
Yeah, we
worry.
have. It's fine.
We say casting doesn't blacklist, but I will tell you that they don't like racists. So,
In
general
the
note.
podcast there. We release this segment on next February during Black History Month.
You have to host then. That's when I have to do that. I'm passing the mic to Gabrielle.
And the only time you give me time to pass the mic is in the month of February.
That's it. The rest of the time, I just refer you as my business partner and we go on about it.
But all of your branding changes in February to be about the Black woman that's coming on.
It's just
and how woke you are. But
it's just a black square. It's just a black square with like your photo on it. Remember the black square? This is getting too far. All right, I got to reel it back.
Reel it back in. We've done it long enough.
Oh, all right, we're going to leave it at that. But actually, I do think that we should talk about building influence and like influencer stuff. And if you guys hate that term, come up with a different term for it and we'll use it. I don't care. But figure out what it is that bothers you, because that's like a you problem. And we can answer your questions about what it's like. This is our first round on the influencer contract, like what it is that we're doing, how it's facilitated, how we got to this point, putting out content. Like that would be a really fun thing for us to do. So let's do that. If you
Yeah.
guys have questions, drop it on the Instagram post for this podcast and we will collect them.
A word that really helped somebody instead of influencer, it's impactor. That made me feel better about what I was doing. So let's speak about that because I definitely felt triggered by it. And then they told me, well, what about impactor? And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So maybe that's helpful.
Ooh, impactor. That feels better.
Maybe.
Okay.
Either way, tell us what
Yeah.
to talk about and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we're open books, y'all. As you can tell. Okay, I'm going to go find some examples of Gab dancing on TikTok, and we
Oh,
are
thank
going to
you.
continue our day. I love you so much. And guys, I will talk to you in 2 weeks.